Hey guys, welcome to Bipolar Boxing. We just watched Ryan Garcia win the majority decision over Devin Haney. If you would have asked me before this fight, like, what's the one thing that just cannot happen? Ryan Garcia can't beat Devin Haney by decision. And he did. And let me start off by saying, like, I got no problems with the 7-5 scorecard for Haney, which was the draw. A lot of people they forget how to judge boxing fights, and even with the three knockdowns, because of the point deduction, Ryan Garcia still has to win 6 rounds of that fight to win a decision. And, he probably did or whatever, but like a 7-5 scorecard's not absurd because what you have to do is the 8 rounds that Garcia did not hurt Haney, watch those 8 rounds with the sound off, and you still got to give me Garcia in 2 of those rounds that he didn't hurt Devin Haney. So you're saying that Garcia outboxed Devin Haney for 2 out of 8 of those rounds. He probably did. But it's not absurd to say that Haney won most, if not all, of those rounds. So, like, it's not a crazy scorecard. Like, you don't watch a boxing match, like, when Ryan Garcia knocks him down, that doesn't carry over into the next round for your scoring or anything like that. So watch those 8 rounds separately with the sound off because the announcers are going to be talking about the knockdown and stuff like that. But you still got to give me 2 rounds in there for Garcia. But the bottom line is the right guy won this fight. That would have been a big black eye for boxing had they given Haney the decision, just because the majority of people that watch the fight, they don't know the criteria for judging and all that stuff. They don't know that, look, a 10-9 round is a 10-9 round. Even though Garcia knocks him down, that's still only a 10-8 round. Like, it's just simple math. And, it is what it is. But, I mean, just to start with Garcia, I mean, man, what a big FU to all those people on social media. Like, I love, like, guys like Buddy McGirt. I love the guy. Like, he's on one of my gloves back here. But he said, like, the fight shouldn't have even been happening because of Ryan Garcia's mental capacity. Everyone's saying, like, there was a chance the fight was going to get canceled. Like, I didn't buy into any of that shit. Like, I know what mental health issues are like. I've been dealing with them for 25 plus years. And I can tell the difference between mental health and somebody who's just an entitled douchebag. Like, I don't like Ryan Garcia as a personally, but you don't look at intangibles like that and carry him over into the boxing ring without seeing something else. So I thought all of that was undeserved hate on Garcia just because people don't like his antics. But it's just who the guy is in. Like, guys, we're in a different world today. Like, the guy seems crazy. He's from a younger generation. It's just who he is. But the one thing I said going into this fight is I'm like, man, everybody counting out Ryan Garcia, which I did too, but it was just for Devin Haney's boxing ability. I just thought Devin Haney's going to be the first one to 7 rounds, and if there's no knockdowns, he wins a decision. It's just that simple. But for all those people who looked into the mental health and they automatically carried it over to he's not training hard and stuff like that. I didn't hear one fucking interview from Derek James this whole build-up, and I definitely didn't hear Derek James come out and say, oh, this guy's not working hard in the gym. He wasn't trying to make weight, which I don't think he was trying to make weight, and it clearly showed because he had the gas to do that for all 12 rounds, and that's because of those 3 extra pounds, in my opinion. But if I would have heard Derek James come out and say, like, man, something's wrong with this kid, I don't know if we should be doing the fight or whatever. Derek James didn't say any of that, and he's the only guy that anybody should be listening to because he would have said something. He would have said something if something was going on. But behind the scenes, and also like what Ryan Garcia was doing was not calculated like everybody thinks it was. It's just who he is. He knows he's going to be hated. He might buy into the role or whatever, but it's who the guy is. Conor McGregor, like, that's just who the guy is. Like, these things aren't calculated, and if they were, it would be taking away from what they're doing in the gym, and it's clearly not. That clearly wasn't the case. So all the pre-fight videos that you were watching, it's all about what a guy is saying or whatever. You don't never try to hop into somebody's mind like that. Like I was calling everybody in every comment section like armchair psychologist trying to diagnose Ryan Garcia with mental illness. Well, what do you say now? What are you gonna say now? Oh, he's still fucking crazy, but he was able to stay switched on for 12 rounds and do all that with a severe mental illness that he probably shouldn't have been fighting for. Like, you're dead wrong if you think that. So I'm really happy for Ryan Garcia just because he was clearly putting in all the work. And if he lost this fight, he was clearly putting in a lot of work with Derek James. If he lost this fight, he would have looked like a fucking idiot because that's what everybody would have said. See, we told you the guy wasn't mentally well. He shouldn't have been there. He's going to quit during the fight and stuff like that. Like, and Ryan Garcia knows that, and he uses it as a chip on his shoulder to train harder in the gym. So now you have to give Ryan Garcia the benefit of the doubt that he knows what the fuck he's doing. Same with Teofimo Lopez. Don't forget, guys. Before the Josh Taylor fight, there was people saying that Teofimo Lopez should retire. And I think it was maybe the Sandor Martin fight. I think it was. I think that's who he fought. But like he didn't look good in that fight or whatever. The Jermaine Ortiz, maybe he didn't look good or whatever. But like when he dominated Josh Taylor, all that talk just immediately stops. I'm like, what, did he cure himself of mental illness over 12 fucking rounds of boxing? Like, same thing with Ryan Garcia. Is he now cured from his mental illness? Or do you guys just, like, I'm telling you guys, like, if you're going through a severe mental illness like that, you are not going to be able to perform as an athlete like he did last night. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And it just shows that, like, everyone on social media didn't know what the fuck they were talking about, especially when it comes to mental illness. Like, that part bothered me personally when everybody was taking shots at Ryan Garcia for that. Because you don't know. You're not there in the gym. The only people that can say shit like that, like I said, was Derek James, and he didn't say any of it, so I wasn't even going to touch that ground. I just looked at it from a boxing standpoint, and I said, Devin Haney should walk through this guy. But I still always I never put Jake Paul as a lot of people put him as influencer slash boxer Jake Paul or whatever. No, he's a boxer first. He's got a big social media following, but that's not a bad thing. And I even heard an interview with Callum, I think it was Callum Smith the other day, and he was talking about Ryan Garcia is just not deserving of any of this. He doesn't have any skill. He's getting fights because of his popularity. He shouldn't be making all this money. It's do idiots not understand that, yeah, if the guy brings more eyes and more money to the fight, he should get paid more? The whole Jake Paul thing, oh, well, he shouldn't be main eventing. What do you want him to fight on the undercard and have everybody fucking leave the stadium for the main event? It's just these guys are just they're in their lane, but that's the business part of the sport. This isn't an entertainment sport. Boxing is a business, and Ryan Garcia, maybe he didn't deserve a title shot at 140 because he hasn't done hardly anything at 140 yet, but it's not absurd to say he didn't deserve it. His skill is there. It's always been there. That's another thing. People get caught up in the social media and everything, and they act like, this guy wasn't a great amateur. This guy hasn't been boxing his whole life. Those are all the benefit of the doubts that I gave Garcia before this fight. The guy's still a real good fighter. I always put Ryan Garcia as a Class A fighter. I just thought he was underneath. There's certain special fighters in this sport, especially around his weight class, Tank Davis, I think, special. Shakur Stevenson, special. Teofimo Lopez, special. I thought, and I still think Devin Haney is a special fighter. And that's why I picked him to beat Garcia. But, the level below all those guys, Ryan Garcia can hang with anybody at 135, 140. I've always thought that. There's a few other guys maybe I'd favor over him and stuff like that. But he can hang with anybody up there at world-class level. It's just there's a lot of special guys in his weight class right now, and that what's he gonna do? But he didn't deserve a lot of the hate that was going into this fight, and I'm glad he proved everybody wrong for himself. Like I said, I do not like the guy or whatever, but for himself to be able to do all that, and it was great for boxing. That fight was great for boxing. A lot of people that don't watch boxing are probably just going to say like, "Man, that Haney guy wasn't that good. Why did everybody think he was that good?" Haney's still a great fighter. It's just now everybody's excited about Ryan Garcia. So all those 15-year-old fans of his or whatever, they're going to turn in. They're going to tune into his next fight, whatever the hell he does next. Everybody's going to tune in for it. And it wouldn't be the same if Devin Haney had won that fight. So, very good for boxing, especially since like guys, did anybody watch that undercard? Like I watched the whole thing. It was fucking terrible. I mean, the decision before the Arnold Barboza Sean McCombs fight was absolutely disgusting. The decision. It was I read every week. I read Breadman Edwards on BoxingScene.com, and he always got a thing about A-side decisions. He calls them A-side decisions, another A-side decision, A-side stoppages and stuff like that. Guys, it's a thing in boxing, and they proved it last night on a big stage, and they fucked up and gave boxing a bad eye because Barboza is not that good of a fighter, but he is Golden Boy's maybe their biggest prospect, or one of them. But they got big plans for that guy, and they didn't want to fuck him up. And what I hate about decisions like that is, first of all, Luke Holmes or Sean McCombs, he deserved that fight. He obviously worked his ass off in the gym. I remember when he got his ass kicked by Gavin Gwynn, who's not that good of a fighter. I love watching those Brits fight and stuff like that. Gavin Gwynn's a very exciting fighter. He's not that fucking good. And, McCombs got stopped by him. So I was like, this Barboza guy should be able to, probably get a late stoppage because Barboza doesn't knock many people out. He doesn't have any power. But he fixed whatever problems he had, back in like 2021 or whenever that fight was. And once again, like that guy puts all this work into the gym and he didn't get any credit for it. Like we all saw him win the fight. The guy worked his ass off. He had a perfect game plan. He executed it, and he loses the decision. And the thing I hate most about that decision is there's a whole country of UK fans that tuned in to watch that card, and that was their guy. And he should have scored a big upset. He was a 15-1 underdog, at least on my account, because I bet Barboza, but the guy won 8 rounds to 2. I mean, maybe you can give Barboza another round or two, but I saw 8 rounds to 2 for Sean McComb, and he got fucked, guys. He got fucked. And like one judge had it 98-92, and one other one had it like 93-97 the other way. It's just it's disgusting. It's an A-side decision from Golden Boy. And like I said, when a whole country like that, because what it does is it causes like a rift in like UK fighters, like that's why we don't go to fucking America to fight, because I love these UK fighters. I'm a huge fan of like Dalton Smith. I've been a fan of him for years. Like Felix Cash, Lerone Richards is one of my favorite prospects in the whole sport. Like I love that country, but I want to see these guys come over to America. And I just say come over to America because, guys, we're not coming over there. I'd love to see it either way, but I want to see these fights happen. And the most reasonable thing is, like, you guys got to come to the United States, unfortunately. Well, this is why they don't want to fucking come here. Like, if they're not promoted by Top Rank or, or Golden Boy or anything like that, they're not coming to the United States and fighting one of their fighters. Especially, like, if they can't win by knockout and they just got to put out a masterful boxing performance and still lose a decision, there's no reason for them to do that. because everybody's going to forget about this fight with Arnold Barboza. And Barboza's going to come up and he might fight for a world title within the next year or two or something like that, because everybody will forget about this. And it's not fair to Sean McCombs. It's not fair to his fans. And like I said, it's a whole country that you are now turning against American boxing. Because I'll tell you, like, I haven't been on social media to see, like, all the UK fans and stuff like that, but they're going to be pissed, and rightfully so. And they're gonna look down on American boxing, and it is a black eye for us. And other than that, like, the rest of the card it just stunk. Like, Jonathan Ramirez got exposed. I mean, I've been a fan of Scrappy, but like, I knew there's only a certain level he can get to. Like, he started boxing at a young age. Like, I like the his personal story and stuff like that, because he does have to work very hard in the gym. But the problem is, I don't like those guys who get a late start on boxing, because they're so far behind. Like, when you've been doing this your whole life, like that Jimenez guy, I'm sure has been fighting his whole life. They just got a leg up on you, and like, you can't afford to learn on the job in boxing. You can up to a certain level, but I knew Jonathan Ramirez wasn't going to get over a certain point. Like, he wasn't going to win a world title, and or anything like that. And I'm glad he got exposed, and good for Jimenez. But I mean, that fight was kind of a dud, and mostly because of Ramirez. But that fight was a dud. The undercard was just horrible. Like, there's some bright spots on there. Like, I don't know, Charlie Conwell looked all right, but like, there was no star power on this undercard whatsoever. Like, you got fucking Arnold Barboza fighting in the co-main event. What the hell is that? Nobody knows who the fuck that guy is outside of hardcore boxing fans. So the card was a dud, and the main event of all saved the night. And nobody thought that would be the case. If you would have said what's going to be the best fight on the card, nobody would have said the main event, because you would have thought it'd been one-way traffic. No matter who you thought was going to win the fight, you would have said Garcia's either going to knock him out, probably catch him early, or Devin Haney's going to win a boring decision where he's just hitting and holding the whole night, and which he did a lot of holding in that fight. But yeah, it was what it was. But it was a great night for boxing, because that's another thing where like the main event was so great that everybody will be like, that card was pretty good. It was pretty good. Well, the card stunk until that main event. And but good for Ryan Garcia, just because, guys, when a guy like Ryan Garcia is as close to the top of our sport, it's a great thing for boxing, because in order for our sport to strive, you need to bring eyes to the sport that don't watch the sport, if that makes any sense. People like me, I watch boxing every single week. I watch probably like 30 fights a week at least for boxing. There's not many people out there like me. There's not many people supporting. You need to bring the star power. You need to bring the people in to watch 1-2 fights. I watch 2 fights a year. I watch Ryan Garcia and I watch Jake Paul. That's good, because maybe they'll watch the sport enough to be like, instead of watching Ryan Garcia and Jake Paul, I like watching the sport of boxing. That's the whole business side to boxing, is you need to get people like that. You need to draw them in there with somebody like Ryan Garcia or Jake Paul. You're not drawing him in there with a guy like Subriel Matisse, even though he's a very exciting fighter. Like, people just don't know who he is. You have to draw people to the sport so they can see people like Matisse and then fall in love with the sport. That's what you want them. You don't want them to fall in love with the characters, because then you always need to search for that character. One of the problems that the UFC is having right now is they're looking for the next Conor McGregor, because they have to sell their sport to the fans. They have to sell the character, because the majority of their fans, and I'm a huge MMA fan, but like the majority of MMA fans do not watch the sport hardcore. They're just mainly into characters. So they're just like, oh my God, Sean O'Malley's the best fighter in the world. Did you see what he did or whatever? And it's like, well, if you watch 10 MMA fights a year, your opinion means absolutely nothing. But what does it do? It gets their eyes on the sport, and hopefully they will just become that guy who ends up just watching the sport itself. Because you can't just keep creating characters. You can't ask some guy that just doesn't have them in it to sell fights or whatever. Like, hey man, I just want to show up and box, man. I just want to do that. Like, you can't force that upon people. Like, hey man, if you want to make it in this sport, you got to have 25 million followers on Instagram or something like that. That shouldn't be the case, but you do need some people like that, like I said, just to bring people into the sport. So let me know who you guys think Ryan Garcia fights next. To be honest, like as much of a boxing fan as I don't know in this situation like where the belt goes. I'm assuming it's just vacant. I don't think Haney still has the belt. I think it's just vacant. So Garcia will fight whoever for the belt next. If it's Devin Haney, I think that's great. I think that would make a lot of money. And to be honest, like if you're Garcia, like now that you've beat Haney and the way he beat him, is that the easier fight? Because you're gonna have to fight a top guy at 140. I mean, would you rather fight Pitbull Cruz? You definitely don't want to go the route of Matisse. I mean, guys like I'd love to see like a Gary Antoine Russell get his shot or something like that. But that's not going to happen. But like Devin Haney might be the easier pick of the bunch, and it's going to sell more than any of those other guys at 140. Besides Teofimo Lopez, Teofimo Lopez is the fight that I would absolutely love to see. But I think Ryan Garcia will get if he can, he'll try to win that belt, and then I think he takes like a mandatory or something like that. Then maybe we see Teofimo Lopez in like a year or two or something like that. But yeah, let me know where you think who you think Garcia fights next, and if it's not Haney, like where do you think Haney goes from here? Do you guys think he's done? Because I don't. But like I said, great night for boxing, guys. Enjoy your day and get ready for. I think Canelo's the next big fight we got coming up, and that's going to be a banger. So have a good night, guys.